Little Jane Molo, your virtual teacher from Fidel Zarceno National High School. This is the start of our second quarter lessons in grade 9 mapping. To start with, we are going to discuss the music of the classical period. At the end of the lesson, you are able to narrate the life and works of the classical composers, explain the performance practices during the classical period, relate classical music to its historical and cultural background, and explore other arts and media that portray classical elements. The classical era, also called Age of Reason, is the period from 1750 to 1820. The cultural life was dominated by the aristocracy as patrons of musicians and artists who generally influenced the arts. Significant changes in musical forms and styles were made. In the middle of the 18th century, Europe began to move toward a new style in architecture, literature, and the arts, known as classicism. It was also pushed forward by changes in the economic order and in social structure. Instrumental music was patronized primarily by the nobility. The term classical denotes conformity with the principles and characteristics of ancient Greece and Roman literature and art, which were formal elegance, simple, freed, and dignified. In terms of music, the developments are the following. First, homophonic. Harmony and texture is homophonic in general. The second is the crescendo and diminuendo. The dynamics of loud and soft were clearly shown through the extensive use of crescendo and diminuendo. Third, the Alberti bass, a style of broken chord accompaniment called Alberti bass was practiced. And the fourth is composers. The great composers of the period were Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven. These are the instrumental and vocal forms developed during this period. Instrumental forms are Sonata, Concerto, and Symphony. Opera as a vocal form also took place in this period. Its distinct styles are opera seria and opera buffa. These are the composers of the classical period. First, we are going to discuss Franz Joseph Haydn from 1732 to 1809. One of the most prominent composers of the classical period. His life is described as rags to riches story. He came from a poor family and his music led to his rise in social status. His music reflects his character and personality, mainly calm, balanced, serious but with touches of humor. Composed over 100 symphonies and developed them into long forms for a large orchestra. He was named Father of the Symphony, although he excelled in every music genre of the period. Symphony is a musical composition for the whole orchestra, generally in 4 movements, also a sonata for orchestra. Most of his symphonies have nicknames such as the Surprise Symphony, the Clock, the Military. He also wrote chamber piano music and choral works. Here are the works of Franz Joseph Haydn. First is the Surprise Symphony. The Symphony number 94 in G major is the second of the 12 London symphonies written by Joseph Haydn. It is popularly known as the Surprise Symphony. The second one is the Military. The Symphony number 100 in G major is the 8th of the 12th London symphonies written by Joseph Haydn and completed in 1793 or 1794. It is popularly known as Military Symphony. The next one is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart from 1756 to 1791. Mozart is a child prodigy and the most amazing genius in musical history. At age 5, he was already playing the violin and the harpsichord. At 6, he was recognized as an exceptional pianist, and at 7, he was already composing excellent music. At age 13, he had written sonatas, concertos, symphonies, religious works, and operas and operettas. Unfortunately, due to mismanaged finances, he lived his life in poverty, died young, and was buried in an unknown grave. He composed wonderful concertos, symphonies, and operas such as The Marriage of Figaro in 1786, Don Giovanni in 1789, and The Magic Flute, which became popular. Other known works: Eine kleine Nachtmusik, Symphony number 40 in G major, and Sonata number 11. Here are the works of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. First is Don Giovanni. Don Giovanni is an opera in 2 acts with music by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and Italian libretto by Lorenzo da Ponte. It is based on the legends of Don Juan, a fictional libertine and seducer, written by Tirso de Molina. The Magic Flute is an opera in 2 acts by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. The work is in the form of a singspiel, a popular form during the time it was written and included both singing and spoken. The next composer is Ludwig van Beethoven from 1770 to 1827. Beethoven was born in Bonn, Germany, to a family of musicians and studied music at an early age. He was the composer who bridged the late classical era and the early romantic era. He was a talented pianist and composer. His famous compositions include 32 piano sonatas, 21 set of variations, 9 symphonies, 5 concertos for piano, 16 string quartets, and choral music. His work include the Missa Solemnis from 1818 to 1823 and Opera Fidelio in 1805. His known symphonies are Symphony number 3 or the Eroica, number 5, number 6 or the Pastoral, number 9 or the Chorale, which adds voices to the orchestra. The characteristics of Beethoven's works are: first, his music veered toward larger orchestras. Sounds was centered on the violas and lower registers of the violins and cellos to give his music a darker mood. All themes in a piece are tied together by one motif. He developed musical themes and motifs extensively by means of modulation. He used more brass instruments and dynamics. Here are the works of Ludwig van Beethoven. First is the Missa Solemnis. Beethoven's Missa Solemnis was completed in 1823, flows from the contemplation of the liturgy, as does J.S. Bach's Mass in B minor from 1724 to 46, but neither was meant to accompany it. Next is the Fidelio. Fidelio was originally titled Leonore. It is Ludwig van Beethoven's only opera. In this part of the lesson, we are going to delve on the different characteristics of the instrumental and vocal music. Sonata is a multi-movement work for solo instrument. Sonata came from the word sonare, which means to make a sound. This term is applied to a variety of works for a solo instrument such as keyboard or violin. Sonata Allegro form. We have three Sonata Allegro form. First is the exposition. Exposition is the first part of a composition in sonata form that introduces the theme. Second, development is the middle part of the Sonata Allegro form, wherein themes are being developed. Third is the recapitulation, which repeats the theme as they first emerge in the opening exposition. Second instrumental form is the concerto. Concerto is a multi-movement work designed for an instrumental soloist and orchestra. It is a classical form of music intended primarily to emphasize the individuality of the solo instrument and to exhibit the virtuosity and interpretative abilities of the performer. The solo instruments in classical concertos include violin, cello, clarinet, bassoon, trumpet, horn, and piano. A concerto has three movements: fast, slow, and fast. The third instrumental form is symphony. Symphony is a multi-movement work for orchestra. The symphony is derived from the word sinfonia, which literally means a harmonious sounding together. It is a classical music for the whole orchestra, generally in 4 movements. Next is the vocal forms. We have opera. Opera is a drama set to music where singers and musicians perform in a theatrical setting. The opera seria, or the serious opera, usually implies heroic or tragic drama that employs mythological characters, which was inherited from the Baroque period. The opera buffa, or the comic opera from Italy, made use of everyday characters and situations, and typically employed spoken dialogues, lengthy arias, and was spiced with sight gags, naughty humor, and social satire.
That's it! Now, here are the key informations that you have to take note about the music of the classical era. First, it is the age of reason or enlightenment. Second, we have two distinct types of operas, the opera seria and opera buffa. Third is, we have three instrumental music, which are the sonata, concerto, and symphony. And the last is the composers, such as Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven. In addition, the music of the classical era is usually associated with the nobility. During that time, most of the members of the nobility would financially support the musicians. Music was played in the courts, which make the music of the classical era more familiar to the nobility than the lower class. Before I'm going to end my virtual lesson, let me invite everyone to please visit our official Facebook page, the Project eLove, because we already posted some virtual PubMeds that can be used in an easier review of the lesson. Once again, I am Jazhel Molo. See you again next week!